Hi everyone, Postmaster GS back with you with another version of the PMGS StampFix app, version 1.25. This was a fairly major update. It's probably going to be the last major update for a little while unless I discover a major bug or if somebody comes along with a new feature request that I think I can make happen. I wanted to do another quick video just to kind of walk you through the changes. This was a fairly substantial change to the way things work on the back end of the app in an effort to make it a little easier on you to process things in a hurry, and as part of that, making the results a lot more accurate so that you don't have to spend as much time trying to jiggle with the settings to get everything exactly where they need to be. First, the most obvious changes to kind of the interface that you see. There's two new buttons here. There's one down here at the bottom left. That's just a reset button so that, for example, if you've got something up, let's go back a folder there. If you've got something up like this and for some reason you want to just clear it out, and you'll see why that becomes a little more important here as I go through the new features, you can just click the reset button and it'll take you back to normal like it was when you opened it. That includes reloading all of your default settings at the same time as well. So it basically takes you back to exactly what it looked like when you opened it up. The drag and drop direct to save button we'll get here in a minute as I explain kind of what that new function is. The largest change on the back end of this thing was to the algorithm that does the calculations specifically on the batch from image. To give you an example of what the changes are, I'm going to load up, and I'm going to pull up version 1.22 that was the previous version of this app, and I'm going to load up a batch image here. Oh, I loaded it with the wrong button. All right, there we go. Okay, if I move the bounding box limits to some pretty extreme values like a 0 minimum and a little over 3600 maximum, and let's say I have a threshold of 100. Okay, 1,971 boxes that the thing detected. Now in the new version 1.25, if I load up the exact same image and I duplicate those settings of 100 threshold, a minimal bounding box size, and 3607 on the maximum, it finds a total of 13 bounding boxes. There's only one little stray right down here. Other than that, it got it accurately. So you can see the big difference in managing to get rid of a lot of those extra boxes. The benefit to that is it makes it a lot easier on you. You don't have to spend time fiddling with the individual minimums, maximums, and tolerances. It should be a lot more accurate from the word go when you load things up. Now, as to why that becomes important, that takes me to one of the other new features I put in on this, and that is drag and drop. So it is set up now where this entire middle area here is a drag and drop target. So if I take an individual image, like I'll grab this one down here and I just drag it in here, you'll notice on a Mac it turns into a green plus sign. It's a little different on a Windows computer, but the logo definitely changes, and you just drop it in there and it will automatically process that. That works for a variety of things, not just the singles. There are 4 different ways that this app processes images. It can do single images and then the 3 different batch functions: batch an entire folder, batch multiple files at one time, or batch from an image. All of those work with the drag and drop. For example, if I take a folder, let me find a folder down here I can do this with. Right here. All right, I'm going to grab this folder, which has it actually has 6 files in it. 5 of those 6 are image files that the app can process. The 6th one is a Photoshop document, which is not a file format that the app can process. 4 of them with a black background, 1 of them with a white background. If I just grab that folder and drag it, it's going to use the batch output settings that I've got in here and immediately process those. And you'll see over here on my output on the right hand side, I got the 5 image files, all of them processed. In the same run, processing both the white background and the black background, all in one run without having to adjust any settings. If I do it again, I cleared it before you could see it, so I'll do it again. You'll notice it popped up a warning at the end which tells me it got 5 of the 6 files in that folder. The one it didn't get is the Photoshop document, which is not a format that the app can process. So it tells you if you've got stray files in that folder, which ones it didn't process. So if, for example, you have Word documents, text files, other things in the folder, it will grab the image files, process them, and just bypass the other files that are in the folder. And you'll notice in the renaming over here, or in the output folder, it renamed to add a -2 to all of those. That again is an expansion on the feature that I added in 1.22, so that when you're doing any kind of batch processing, it doesn't overwrite things. It just adds a -2, -3, -4, so on and so forth on the end, so that you're not overriding older runs when you process newer images. It'll also do it with the batch files function. If I take some of those same files, like I'll grab these 3 and drag them, again you'll see the little icon change, and there's a number on a Mac that tells you there's 3 files there. Boom, boom, boom. And over here in the output folder, sometimes it takes it just a second for my computer to refresh the contents of the folder. There they are. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now with the singles and the batch for image, these operate a little bit differently than the batch folder and files, just because those are the 2 functions that you have the ability to actually pull something up on the screen and play with it. That's why this drag and drop direct to save button is there. If I drag a single image and that button is not, it's a toggle switch, there's on, there's off. If that button is in the off position and I drag a single file, it loads it, where you can manipulate it and do whatever. If I change that to a toggle so that it's now pushed down, and I drag, say, this file and drop it in the target area, it doesn't load it to the screen, it outputs it directly to the output folder. So this gives you the option of bypassing the manipulation screen here and just sending these things straight to file. It's only applicable with the singles and the batch from image, because those were the only 2 that you actually loaded something on the screen. The batch folder and batch files, those always went straight to file, so that doesn't really change anything. So with a batch from image using that function, well, let me turn it off and show that first. If I grab a batch image and just drag it and drop it, and that button is not pressed, it's just going to load it up like it always did, and then from there I can manipulate it however I need to. You'll notice with the settings I had in here, it automatically pulled a 12 for 12 with no stray boxes. But if I click that button, now when I drag an image up and drop it, it's going to process that, and you'll see the files pop up here in my output folder on the right hand side. Now it doesn't just work with singles. So I have a folder here that has 7 different scans, all of which are batch image. Oh, wrong folder. Batch image file. So you can see, if you can see this down at the bottom here, there's 7 files, one of which is the big master file that has all of the stamps in one scan, and the other 6 images are just them broken up into smaller chunks. This new drag and drop feature allows you to do multiple batches at one time. So for example, if I grab, say, these 3 batch images and drag them, now because there's multiple, it doesn't give you the option of just pulling it up on the screen and adjusting the settings. It automatically outputs them directly to file. So it processed all 3 of those batch images, and over here on the right hand side, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see that it it outputted all of those in that one run. So the benefit to this is now if you scan things in batches and you end up with a folder that has numerous image files, all of which need to be processed with the batch for image function, you can literally just, you don't even have to grab them individually as a file. I can just grab that entire folder, because again, there's a folder function, and just drag it. And it will take a little bit because one of those images is a larger file. You'll see the little progress bar pause for a second when it gets to it. But it will process all 7 of those files, and I should end up with 38 images in the output when all is said and done. The accuracy of this and the ability to process them without any errors really depends on getting your settings correct before you do the runs. It's going to pull your settings from the 2 locations that there are settings in here. When you're running singles and these batch folders and files, it's pulling largely from these settings. When you're running the batch for image, it's pulling from these settings. There is a little bit of overlap between these because the way that the app is able to tell whether something is a single image or a batch for image with multiples in it, it does an initial scan of the image to try to detect how many boxes are on the screen, and if there's only one box, it processes it as a single. If there's multiple boxes, it processes it as a batch from image. Now what that ability does is, in addition to being able to tell singles from multiples and being able to tell black backgrounds from white backgrounds. So I have a folder here, and I don't know if you can see this in the video when it's all said and done, but it's got, let me see if I can blow this up here. This one folder has 2 images that are multiples with a black background, 1 image that's multiples with a white background, and then 4 singles with a black background and 1 single with a white background, and 1 dummy file that's a format it can't process. So this is a little bit of everything all thrown into one folder, and all I have to do is grab that folder. Well, let me clear out the output. Just grab that folder, drag it over, drop it, and it will separate the blacks backgrounds from the white backgrounds, separate the singles from the multiples, and it will attempt to process them all. It says it got 8 of 9. It did not get the dummy file that is not the proper format. But over here you can see we had 4 singles that already had a name. Michelle numbers 8, 10, 11, and 14. So those all got outputted here. We had a white single, that's that one. We had a white background multiple, which was actually just the same stamp 4 times on the white background. There they are. We had a multiple image with a black background that had 4 stamps on it. That's these 4. And we had a multiple image with a black background that had 12 stamps on it. There they are. So it got them all. So it managed to run all 4 different types of images that were in that folder all in one run without any user input other than just dragging it and dropping it. So I hope that these new features make it easier on you. I know from some of the emails I've been getting from folks that a lot of folks have different workflows and how they tend to do their processing. I hope this will make it easier on you now that the app does a lot of the work for you, that for the most part you should be able to just, if your settings are correct, and that's something you'll just have to experiment with on your own computer to kind of find exactly where the sweet spot is for your settings. But if your settings are correct, you get to the point where literally all you got to do is just grab the folder that the images are in, or select the images individually, just drag them, drop them, and boom, there's your output. Or again, just grabbing the entire folder, drag it, drop it, and watch it run. The only other thing I should mention is I did implement the renaming safeguards that I put into 1.22 in one small area across the larger app, so that really there's only 2 times when it will not automatically rename the image to avoid overwriting something that's there. And those 2 situations are when you've got a single and you actually pull up the save box like this, because you're manually typing in a file name here, it doesn't do anything automatically there. And the other is when you're doing a batch from image and you go to edit them individually, because you're putting in individual file names in this one and hitting save, it also doesn't do any automatic renaming on that screen. But the rest of these, because they're all batch processes, it does the automatic renaming, so you shouldn't have to worry about file names getting overwritten unless you do it manually. So give it a try. Let me know what you think. As usual, I'm open to suggestion for new features or improvements you'd like to see, or if you have any bugs to report, please let me know. Other than that, have a good time with it.